Today, I'm watching The Twilight Zone, Season 2, Episode 25. The previous episode was about this train robbery where people traveled 100 years into the future to 2061 and, carrying around these gold bars and backpacks trying to make it to town. And we find out that gold is, in fact, worthless in the future. And, they went through all of this and got nowhere, which is what we've seen, previously in episodes involving greed or gambling or anything like that. They never are able to make it out with anything. They always end up, right back at zero. There's no gains, and they go through this, long process and, don't really get any further ahead. So yeah, it was a really interesting episode. I love that we got to go a little bit in the future. There was no next time on the Twilight Zone, so I have no idea what this episode is about, but very curious to check it out. So thank you so much for sharing in this first time watching with me. If you have any other suggestions for TV shows you think I should watch, please comment below. And if you want to see exclusive content from this episode, be sure to join Patreon. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and check back often for more awesome content.
It is Jack Brewer. He's a raucous sort, a little crude, nouveau riche. You know the type.
Nouveau riche, new rich. Seems like a very fancy gentleman club of the sort, huh?
So that everyone in the world can hear him. Anyway, he says to me, Jim, I've got to scrape up $250,000, and you're the only...
Why we have these close-ups of these ears and mouths? What?
$1 million, mind you. And I'm supposed to scrape it up for him. I mean, I am supposed to scrape it up as though it were some kind of residue.
And this echo, yeah, when he talks, what's going on?
Wouldn't know a corner of the market from a railroad roundhouse.
The only thing worse than his talking so much is his transparency.
And the split diopter shot, yeah.
Communication to you, Alfred, was not as an old friend, but as my lawyer.
Out of Vancouver, BC.
As the wager I have in mind,
They just mentioned Vancouver, Canada. It makes me so happy.
it's from me. Ask him to read it immediately. Why, yes, sir. The note that this...
Is this the theme song? I feel like I've heard this music before.
It's been a wheel of chance in a very bizarre casino called the Twilight Zone.
Oh, I think it's the outro music, actually, now that I'm remembering it. Yeah, I was like, I know I've heard that music before.
Do you know what I could do with $250,000 in a deal like this? Well, I can tell you this.
And having this, young man, showboating, almost, talking about how successful he is, and this older gentleman, sitting in the corner being like, okay,
Put it down somewhere, Franklin.
Excuse me, Mr. Tennyson. His instructions are that you read it immediately.
I beg your pardon.
and just sitting and observing everything happening in the corner of the room, like this puppet master.
You know, the humor is perhaps the least developed aspect of my character. I am quite serious.
Well, I'm so curious what the note says, if you'll say it out loud.
Mr. Tennyson here. The wagers take the following form. I will bet him $500,000.
Oh my god, that's insane. What?
Cannot remain silent for 1 year.
That's it, he just can't talk. Oh my god.
But he will not be able to speak one single word for 12 months. Not one single word.
This guy's like, I'm so sick of hearing this guy brag about his, adventures.
What about it, Tennyson?
May I ask, what is the reason for this wager?
He's like, I'm sick of hearing your voice, buddy.
To say might horrify the average person. But to someone as insensitive as you, it probably won't mean a thing.
Today on What Rich People Can Do When They Don't Like Each Other. Yeah.
I cannot ask you to resign from the club. I haven't got that right. So it occurred to me...
He's like, I'm rich. Why not just get rid of you and get you to stop talking and shut up?
Shallow, talkative, empty-headed ne'er-do-well. And to remain silent would destroy you.
What do you say back to that? Can you say anything? Do you prove him right and say nothing?
Arrive... several months of exquisite silence.
And it sounds like I feel like other people in the club were feeling the same thing but wouldn't say it to him.
And you do practically anything for money. Except, perhaps, to remain silent.
Wow. Oh, but curious if he can do it.
Who are you? Or call your bluff? Well, I choose to do the latter. I accept your wager.
This guy doesn't seem worried. He's like, you'll last a couple months and then you'll be back.
All around the room, which you are to leave untouched. Your every movement will be recorded, and so will your voice.
That's insane. That's so crazy. You're being just like in this glass bubble for a year.
And so, at 10 p.m., June the 3rd, 1962, you may leave the room.
We've reached 1962. Okay, interesting.
Colonel, I would like to have that check certified and placed on deposit in my name.
Of course he's not going to do this. Yeah, he backs out.
Well, a year from tomorrow night, both can be proved. Frankly, get me my coat.
I'm very curious. I think ego either way is going to be his downfall. Clearly talking and boasting so much in this room is what got this guy to want him to shut up in the first place. But also his ego to not turn it down in a room full of his peers. He can't back away, like...
In need of money. It may sound melodramatic, but it happens to be true.
What is he going to say to his wife, for a year? And I like that he can still write things down, because if he's supposed to be this, businessman, what's going to happen to all his businesses for a year if he doesn't have any contact with them? The watching it part, though, is what's adding a new level of creep to it for me, because it's just, he's like a hamster in a cage, and they're just going to stare at him, and I understand they want to make sure that he's not talking, but, like... That's creepy, and this guy I don't trust fully either, it seems a little vindictive to be like, I don't want to listen to you talk, so here's some money to shut up, basically. I think, like, the first few weeks would be the hardest, and then maybe you'd get used to it. I don't know, maybe it would be, like, weirdly comfortable in a way. You could just... focus on your things and get things done, but this guy definitely seems like he likes the attention of talking about himself, so...
Yes, I hope he stays in perfect health. I wouldn't want this experience to damage him in any way.
As he's, like, smoking, endlessly, like...
9 weeks. There's a little bit more gristle there than I gave him credit for.
I feel like this guy is going to, like, try and steal his business deals while he's inside or something like that and just want to get him out of there. And to hear what's happening on the outside world and not be able to comment on it if people are saying things that are untrue, he just has to kind of sit there and take it, which I'm sure is not easy for him, so... And that's a cool shot with the clock, swinging as time's passing. Another month is gone, yeah.
And I think you're going to owe him $500,000. I just hope you've got it.
Yeah, I can't see him, like, making it to the end and this guy being like, you win, and just handing him a check. Like, there's got to be some Twilight Zone twist going on. There's got to be, some other element to it here. It doesn't have the money, or something's been going on behind the scenes where this guy's been stuck in this little hamster cage.
Human. I'm prepared to offer you $1,000, and you may walk out today.
He's like, I did not go through all of this for $1,000. And how interesting that would be as an actor to be like, you can't talk. You just need to have this amazing performance just with your, 3 months to go. He's like, you're too late, buddy. You had your chance. Yeah.
Desperately lonely. As a matter of fact, she has been seen with other young men.
I feel like he's lying. He's just baiting him to try and get him to say something.
I happen to know you've written her many notes requesting a visit. She hasn't responded, even to the notes.
Oh, gosh, that's tough.
Why don't you leave right now? It still might be possible to save your marriage.
Maybe they're not getting the notes to her. Maybe they're just trying to mess with him. And I feel like it'd be so hard not to accidentally say something. Like, even when the guy brought him dinner, not to say, like, thank you or something, just, like, out of reflex.
Tennyson, I saw your wife again. She was getting into a little European sports.
Oh my god, yeah, these double exposure shots just messing with his head. He's just to try to mentally tone it out.
A lot of your debts. A little bracelet for your wife. Something to compensate.
He's in May. Oh, it's so close to June. Just hold out, buddy. You just gotta do it. Just ignore him. Just ignore him. Oh my gosh.
All up the walls. Listen, Tennyson, you cannot stay in there one more hour. Not another half hour.
This is the guy who wanted nothing to do with him because he thought he was talking too much, and now he's going out of his way to taunt him? Like...
The action I'm talking about has already taken place. There have been ugly rumors, Archie. Things you've done to him.
Yeah, he was so rude to him.
That boy down there is stronger than you gave him credit for. And you are considerably weaker.
Yeah, he thought he would never do it, and he did it, and he's just like, proved him wrong.
It's impossible.
It's 10 o'clock. Get the checkbook ready, buddy. Yep. What would be your first words? Ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Is he gonna gloat? Is he just gonna, say anything? What do you even say? Yeah. I think he's earned a little bit of that respect now, at the very least. I don't think he's asking for a handshake. It's money, please.
The truth is, I am a fraud. I haven't any money.
What? Oh my gosh. This guy, it was all for nothing?
But I lost most of my money some years ago.
I think this guy's gonna punch him in the face. Oh my gosh. He's like, a year of my life. He's like, I'm literally at a loss for words now. I have nothing to say.
What's he writing? What is he doing? Why doesn't he talk?
Looks like he's crying even. What's going on? Oh.
So 1 year ago, I had the nerves to my vocal cords severed.
Oh my god. Oh, I was wondering why he was wearing a scarf. Oh my god. To go to that extreme and now there's no money and he can't ever speak again? Oh my god.
Discovered somewhat belatedly that gambling can be a most unproductive pursuit, even with loaded dice marked cards.
Cheese and rice, that's grim.
Somewhere beyond him, a wheel was turned, and his number came up black 13. If you don't believe it, ask the croupier. The very special.
So grim. My heart. Oh my god. So that was my first time watching The Twilight Zone, Season 2, Episode 25. I really like this episode. I feel like there's a lot you can pick apart, which is what I like from Twilight Zone episodes. And there was no sci-fi elements. There was no supernatural pieces. It was just two men playing this weird game with each other of who's the toughest, who is the strongest person, who has the ego that they can, set aside, and who can outwit, outmatch, outplay each other. So that was very much an interesting approach in my mind, because usually Twilight Zone, I was expecting some kind of twist. I do feel like we probably saw it coming that he wasn't going to have the money, that the Colonel wasn't going to be able to pay, but I thought maybe he'd offer something else, like, oh, I'll give you a job and I'll pay you that way, or like, oh, I'll give you $1,000, which we did see him offer, throughout the course of the year, that he offered him money to leave. But I didn't think it would be so bad where he said, even if you took the $1,000, I'd have to go and scrounge that up, that he's just so flat broke. And yeah, again, ego is a very, very big theme, in my opinion, in this episode, and especially with it being at this fancy, social club for these men all in suits and, high society, if you will, and ego, and, look at me, look at all the great things I've done, and look at how successful I am, and all my accomplishments. And when we first meet our characters, you can see that the Colonel is obviously an older gentleman. I thought maybe he's like, I'm sick of these younger kids, coming in, bragging, asking for money when they haven't, paid their dues and haven't really earned it. I thought maybe that's where his approach was going to go, which would come from his ego, of course, being like, oh, like, they don't know anything yet. Like, I'm, I have so much more experience than they do. And, then to have the opposite end of spectrum being like, he has ego because he's young and successful and thinks he has all these things, and seeing how that comes into play. And again, they both kind of gamble with their egos and gamble with their reputation. And even though the episode obviously focuses strongly on Arthur and Tennyson, we need the group. We need that, club surrounding them, because if it's just the two of them, battling it out, at the end, the big reveal means nothing, because no one's there to publicly, have this information. Arthur was obviously keeping the secret that he's flat broke, and, he had money to get into the club, obviously, at one point, but has since lost it. And, it's just now going there to keep up appearances. And Tennyson gambling his ego to not have enough faith in himself, to not trust himself, to think that, oh, I'm not going to make it through. I need this money so badly. He mentions his wife shops at Tiffany's, like, people go to the, grocery store, and he has to keep up, his lifestyle. So he needs this money so badly. And I believe I've seen a few comments that, what 1960s money would be times 10 in today's money. So $500,000 times 10, obviously a significant chunk of money either way. And to know that he's going to go through this for a year, and, as each month passes and passes, I'm sure Arthur was getting sweaty and thinking, oh God, what am I going to do? And we do see him offer money, obviously, throughout the course of the year, but did not in any way think that he would go through with it. And that's why I think he offered such a large amount of money. And to put Tennyson to shame and say, oh, well, if you could just keep your mouth shut, you would have had it. And then, thinks Tennyson's going to walk through the door with like a tail between his legs, shamed and saying like, oh, you're right, I only made it 2 months. And, Archie wouldn't have to pay anything and no one would find out his secret because, he could just keep living this life and, embarrass somebody in the process. And I was just like, man, the games rich people play, I cannot relate. I do not understand, even if you had that much money, to waste it on embarrassing somebody just because they're talking so much. Like, oh my gosh, I get it would be annoying for sure if you're in this large room and, you have this one person who just keeps talking endlessly, and especially going around asking people for money. I can understand that would get frustrating, and especially in 1960s society, that probably wasn't, encouraged. And, but I'm like, you didn't have to, he set himself up to fail, and at the end, they both lose, in my opinion, because Archie's secret is out. Everybody knows he's flat broke. I promise you he's not going to show his face back in this club again because he's embarrassed himself beyond all measure. Not only did his plan backfire that Tennyson was able to stay the year, but now everybody knows that he's broke. And this is a place that obviously values affluence and, currency and success. And now frickin' Tennyson doesn't have any vocal cords. Like, are you joking me? A very extreme approach. But again, no sci-fi, no supernatural. It's just two men, battling it out in this old weird game that they have with each other when, go to a different club, man. Find out, okay, divide the week. He's going to go Tuesday, Wednesdays. You'll go different days. Like, figure it out like adults. Like, it just seemed like such a childish and weird and creepy approach. And the fact that Arthur was instantly, oh, I'll just build you a cage in the games room and you'll live there for a year and we'll record everything. And the fact that Tennyson could hear what's happening on the outside but couldn't respond, again, that's why I was like, how has he not accidentally said anything? Just even out of reflex. Like, when we have that guy bring him his dinner, how does he not just say thank you or like, make a subtle noise talking to himself or something that would get him disqualified? Because it's like, that would be so tricky. And as time goes on, it's like, okay, he's obviously used to it now, but to find out that he had his vocal cords cut, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, not only did he lose the money that he would have got from this year-long, prank basically, but any future business dealings he's gonna do now, how's that gonna work? Like, his career is done. Is he going to send all his correspondence by mail? Like, is he going to, write every letter? And assuming Tennyson's like in his 40s, late 30s, 40s, something like that, he's never going to speak. Like, it was just I was not expecting that as the ending. I thought maybe there'd be a sci-fi, something, time travel. I don't know. I wasn't sure where we were going to go. I do, again, feel like it was obvious he wasn't going to pay, but I wasn't sure. And yeah, in no way was I thinking he would cut his own vocal cords. And the little faith he had in himself was also sad to see, and trying to protect his ego he's like, well, I have to win this now. Like, they've put on this big front. He's made this, very insanely generous offer for a year. I have to go in and win. And he didn't want to take any chances in losing. And then him being shamed, feeling embarrassed in front of everybody. And oh my gosh, again, just the ego, and it's just never ending. And again, both of them lose, in my opinion. And this was an episode we have a fairly long time span. We get, even though it's not a time travel episode, we do go a year into the future, and usually most of our episodes take place in a week, 24 hours, something like that. And again, Tennyson and Archie are our main characters, other than, the chorus of everybody at this club. But, still a great story, so insane. And just, again, for an actor to think about how you're going to perform, we see the beads of sweat, because he wants to say something so badly, and now we know he physically can't. And I think this would be a great episode to rewatch. Now that you know the twist, you can go back and see all of these things, because I was like, man, what is he going to say? As soon as he comes out, what's this, taunting, has he learned anything through this year? Is his ego going to be diminished? Is he going to come in very humble and, shake his hand, say like, good game, I win, you lose type of thing, especially with all his peers watching. But to find out he says nothing, and even the lawyers be like, you can talk now, say something, like, you're free, you can talk. But obviously we find out he can't. And when we first had those opening shots of the close-ups of Archie's ear and then Tennyson's mouth, I thought maybe Archie has like supersonic hearing or something. I was like, maybe we're gonna do an alien, a sci-fi approach where he can hear really well and everything's amplified, and that also signifies why he wants this guy to stop talking, because it's almost like painful for him to just be overwhelmed by all this noise and all this constant talking. But nope, that's not the route. And I was like, maybe he's he's an older person, maybe he's getting hard of hearing, maybe he can't hear as well. But yeah, none of that was true. It was just he didn't want to listen to this guy ramble on anymore. Amazing performances as always, and again, not being able to communicate through your performance, which we've seen, in a previous Twilight Zone episode as well. People not having the ability to speak, with the planet full of giant women, and these astronauts show up, and she doesn't say a word throughout the entire episode, but still has to convey this wide range of emotion. And same with Tennyson, he's not speaking for the second half of the episode and has to show frustration and sadness, and also you can see this clock ticking in his brain of, what is my wife doing? Is she, and just kind of playing over and over again those words in his mind, because he's got nothing but time on his hands, literally. And I really like those double exposure shots we have of Tennyson and Arthur, and the clock, the pendulum swinging as he's just showing how overwhelmed he is, and how it's just this endless literal ticking clock on his hands, counting down the days on the calendar to finally get out, but knowing once he gets out he can't say anything anyway. It was just, yeah, a really good episode, really interesting. I was not expecting that, and it shows kind of the cruelty men can have to each other and also themselves, because this was just a prank. Like, he just wanted to make this guy feel stupid, put him in a box, and basically say, you won't stop talking, so I'm going to shut you up with money, and I have more money than you, which turned out to be a lie. But that's the front, right? Like, that's the game that they're playing in this high society world. And yeah, a really interesting episode. I really enjoyed it. The next episode we know is about this judge, this jury, this trial. So very curious to see where we're going to go in that episode. So thank you so much for sharing in this first time watching with me. If you have any other suggestions for TV shows you think I should watch, please comment below. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and check back often for more awesome content. Why we have these close-ups of these ears and mouths? What? That's it. He just can't talk. Oh my god. And that's the cool shot with the clock, swinging as time's passing. Another month is gone. He's like, I did not go through all of this for $1,000. Yeah, he thought he would never do it, and he did it, and he's just like, proved him wrong.